Welcome to the Wrestling Still Cool podcast. I'm KM. That's Mark.
How y'all doing? Appreciate y'all joining in. It's going to be a fun show.
Right. So I kind of don't talk about this too much in general, but I did miss a lot of the wrestling this week. I did watch 2 of the shows. What ultimately comes down to is another thing I'm kind of pursuing at the same time is I enjoy writing. I'm basically writing a novel at the moment. And I kind of, when the inspiration hit, you kind of have to grab a hold of it, especially with this type of writing because it's long form. So I've been kind of focusing on that as well as watching things and researching things related to the subject at hand. I'm going to take ownership that I did miss the shows, but that's basically why. I can't give you an ETA on when the book will be ready, when it will be out, whether or not it's going to be published, but that's just something I'm pursuing at the same time.
As far as for myself, I just barely caught the Impact Wrestling show right before our podcast. As long as with KM, I also have my career outside of podcasts. I've been country singer, songwriter for 13 years, so it's now to start to get myself a little more out there, try and battle with the pandemic, get some new music out. But yeah, it's time consuming with being the country singer, songwriter, along with podcasts. But last week I did not get to watch Impact, but this week I did just barely. So, but we have a lot of pride and a lot of joy with the wrestling world. So that's why I've loved doing this very much. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when I pulled up here the results from Raw, and this seems like it was pretty much a throwaway show, kind of like what they sometimes will do leading up to in between pay-per-views, like they do 2 pay-per-views back to back, where it's a lot of rehash or rematches here.
Yeah, it was not too much different. Yeah, there's 1 or 2 things that were fairly interesting, but yeah, it was just normal old Raw. It's kind of the same round booking and yeah, basically what you just said, rematches and it was all right though.
Yeah, from what I'm reading here, besides the 24/7 Ali now being part of Retribution, there really wasn't much there.
Yeah, I was surprised. Well, obviously, probably a lot of people were that Ali's the apparent leader of Retribution, and wasn't really expecting that, probably like a lot of people. But they decided to go with the booking for that one. So looking forward to seeing how they go along with that. I just was kind of expecting a little more different pick for that leader to be, and not sure how they're going to evolve Ali and his characters and in the ring and everything.
Right. And here's now granted, I remember them running the ads with the not the ads, they're more like vignettes with the hacker, and that was rumored to be Ali from a while ago.
Yeah.
Which is probably why he's tied into Retribution. But part of me wants to kind of say, oh, they probably looked at it and said, this guy comes to the entrance with a mask. Retribution wears a mask. Let's put them together.
Possibly.
Although I really dig Ali's mask. He looks like Sub-Zero from the 90s Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
I'm all for that.
Oh, yeah. It's good.
No, go continue.
Oh, I was going to say, I was pretty much going to agree with you. And I hope they, like I said, evolve more of his in-ring, make him look like more of a threat, too.
Yeah. Now, I'm seeing here there's a 6-man tag between Drew McIntyre and the Street Profits against Orton, Ziggler, and Rude. Was that any good?
It was all right. Not overly flashy, but it was for what it was. It was okay. It kept my attention going. But pretty much anything that I've seen McIntyre and also Dolph Ziggler in, it's been pretty dang good. So yeah, it was okay. I had no problem with it really.
So speaking of Drew McIntyre, I read an interview with Triple H that WWE feels they have found the next Rock and Austin. Do you know who he said were the 2 people that would be the Rock and Austin of the current era?
Well, one I would have to, I'm sure they're thinking Reigns.
Yeah. Reigns and McIntyre.
There's some big old Rock and Austin guys. That goes back to them joining the big guys of what they've always liked to be, having big guys in there. But I
mean, part of it kind of makes sense in terms of like the way that they carry themselves, but who would be Rock and who would be Austin in this thing? I mean, part of you wants to say Roman's The Rock, but really? But at the same time, Drew is massively over, and he's not an like ass kicker, if you will, like Austin. So, I mean, they've always tried to replicate this. I mean, Orton and Cena were a prime example of them trying to replicate it.
And their body styles and just in ring matched it a lot better. Honestly, I just not big on. It's hard to have big guys when you want to compare. We need a new Rock and Austin. Like, you don't need all that stuff, really. I mean, it's just to where if you have signs of it, hey, cool. But it's more or less you're not going to replicate anything. No, at one point. That's just the bottom line. That's no pun intended.
Right. And even then, when you're thinking of Austin, I think Owens is closer to Austin than either one of those two.
It's as close as it could possibly be. But I mean, that's not even. It's different mic skills, different in the ring. But yeah, that's I know what you mean by that. Honestly, their closest they had in years that they came to somebody that was. Had a big similarity of Austin, and they already he's already gone. It was Dean Ambrose, but he's doing great in his own way in AEW. He has a different kind of character there, huh?
You would say Dean Ambrose? I would actually say CM Punk.
CM Punk he was in his own league, his own. I mean, he had, I guess you call it traits of what I'll do as I damn well please.
Right.
But so did Ambrose in a way, but they just did it differently. But that was always my 2 cents with Ambrose. He reminded me a lot more of Austin than anybody else ever has, at least until in such a long period of time. But I think they dropped the ball there. That whole course. I actually thought if I was going to pick, all 3 Shield members were going to be main eventers, but I saw the top one coming out of that was going to be Ambrose, but. Didn't really go exactly that way, but
yeah, which is weird because when I watched them early on, I was convinced Rollins was going to be the big guy out of there, just because he was more aerial, and he weirdly at that point reminded me of Punk.
Yeah, similar to it.
And now it makes me wonder, like, how Triple H views Rollins at that point, because Rollins is for the last few months, even though Raw hasn't been that great, Rollins was carrying Raw.
Yeah.
The whole Monday Night Messiah thing was Rollins carrying Raw.
Yeah. And now he's on SmackDown.
And now he has no followers.
Yeah. Now he still has to deal with the Mysterio family.
They should just give him followers. And there was someone that returned on SmackDown when we get to SmackDown.
Yeah.
I wonder if they will pair him up with that. Now Impact, I have the Impact results in front of me. Is there anything that stood out to you from Impact?
Stood out, they're not tired. I mean, they had Moose and they're trying to get to find his title, and of course EC3 did his ordeal. That you would know his name better than I would, or at least sounding it out. The X Division champion.
Oh, Rahi Raju.
Yeah. He had an open challenge, and then a lady, I can't remember her name.
Jordan Grace.
Yeah, there we go. Sorry, y'all. I'm still trying to learn more about Impact, and the way they, I thought it was going to be for the title. Obviously, yes, that changed, and it didn't. She won, but he went to the back and talked to Scott. What's his last name? Jason.
I know you're talking about the guy that used to lead Team Canada. I can't think of his last name at the moment.
Oh. I know you led Team Canada right now, honestly.
No, right. It was back in the old TNA Impact era when Robert Roode and Eric Young were Team Canada. He was their leader. I can't think of his last name right now.
I didn't even realize that.
Scott D'Amore.
I didn't know he was the only one. I guess I didn't. I guess I forgot that.
Mm-hmm.
But he made a match for Bound for Glory 6-person match for the X Division title. So,
before you leave that, I like what they're doing with the X Division because it's not only cruiserweights at this point. If they're letting Jordan Grace challenge for it, that means they're opening up to even women. Now, Impact TNA, when it was TNA Impact, tried to expand it a little bit by having Abyss be the X Division champion, which I don't really agree with. But the idea that they're allowing someone like Jordan Grace to challenge for it, I do like.
Mm-hmm. You know, when that title first came out, for the longest time, I never understood the concept of it. It was like, you know, I just didn't feel like it was most. They had some good X Division matches, but I didn't really get the whole big picture of the title, what the meaning, and that's how I felt about it that time frame. And it just didn't like, why don't you just have a different type of title? But that was, you know, back then.
To me, it came across like a cruiserweight title, but they did no limits to try and make it differentiate itself from cruiserweight, which I think that's why we were able to have like AJ Styles, a Samoa Joe, and all of them as champion. Because if it had the limitations that a cruiserweight did, I don't think Samoa Joe would make the weight, or even Christopher Daniels.
Yeah, well, that's why I was getting is later. To me, it wasn't a cruiserweight top to me, not really, because you had the bigger guys that were over that weight that wanted. So I'm like, okay, what does this title really mean to me? You know, at least to me, like what does it really mean in general? I mean, that's how I was feeling about it.
I love the Ultimate X matches, though.
Oh yeah, they're fun to watch. You know, I think the weirdest one I thought, in my opinion, was the Asylum, where you basically climb out of the top of the roof, the hole.
Yeah.
And I just didn't like it. I feel like it's a Russo idea.
It seemed like it.
Yeah, I just didn't really go along with, you know, the result in it. But you know, whatever. But that's done.
So it looked like the Rascals had another match this week, but this time against Triple XL, Larry D and AC Romero.
Yeah.
What'd you think of that?
Honestly, what caught my eye was the finisher. That's a crazy finisher, like backflip kind of thing, and he pushes his partner to his opponent.
You're talking about the assisted moonsault. I know which one you're talking about, or the shooting star. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
That was the highlight for me. Other than it was an alright match, but you know, it didn't really, you know, grab my eyes out to where it's like, got to remember that for the next 10 days or whatever. But it was alright. Yeah, I had a problem with it. Those Triple XL guys are kind of
big. They're heavy machinery. They're definitely like heavy machinery, big old guys. Yeah. And it looks like the Deaners, your guys from Wrestle House that were looking for the beer, Coney Deaner and Cousin Jake, went actually won against Swinger and Crazy Steve. I like Crazy Steve, man.
That team reminds me of myself, except for the beer.
So, Johnny Swinger, have you figured out what his character is supposed to be?
Johnny Swinger.
He's the guy that was tagging against the Deaners with Crazy Steve, the guy in the clown makeup.
Okay. What do I think of his character?
Yeah. Do you know what it is? Johnny Swinger's character is?
You got to kind of maybe.
He thinks he's an 80s wrestler. He acts like an 80s wrestler. So all his gear, all his movements, and all his speech is making fun of people like Hulk Hogan, Jake the Snake, Macho Man, stuff like that. Like, he hasn't changed since the 80s.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Pay attention to it. Pay attention to it. It's pretty funny. Like,
they were on Wrestle House. I didn't really get into Wrestle House. I'm just now getting to know a little bit about that character, basically.
Yeah, there is one episode of Wrestle House. He goes, in Wrestle House they found like a pill bottle or something like that. What ended up being like antibiotics. And they're like, "Are these yours, Johnny?" He goes, "Hey, baby, I don't touch them gimmicks. I don't do that no more." Oh, wow. Yeah, it's mocking the speech and demeanors that they had in the 80s. So no, well, it looks like they had a lot of tag matches on this episode of Impact. So Motor City Machine Guns against basically Ace Austin and Madman Fulton.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that tag team match at